Welcome to After Hours. Yeah, happy Sunday. Sunday seems to be my new day for dropping the pod. So yeah, happy Sunday, guys. Today we have Kristen Bear, an absolute legend on Instagram. I probably use the word legend a bit too much. She's an absolute powerhouse. She's got a great Instagram account. And it was so lovely to finally meet her and have a chat on the podcast. Kristen lives in she built a shipping container house in the woods, where she lives near kind of Nashville in the southeast. You'll hear that I got where Nashville was geographically a little bit wrong. But yeah, it sounds absolutely idyllic. It's my absolute heaven, where she's now residing. But the conversation, Kristen had fairly normal childhood, which is the same with a lot of people. Alcohol doesn't discriminate. She did keep away from the booze, kind of till kind of mid to late teens and that. She did start smoking weed as well, but it soon ramped up from an early age, about 18, 19. Mostly probably brought on with the trauma from like worry, anxiety, and the shame that was brought upon by, this abusive relationship that she was in. So we find out about that. She was working as a model and an actress, which she still does now. And really didn't, because that can be quite a dangerous industry. But she kind of dealt with that, quite focusedly, if that's a word. And, but because of that industry, there's other things that come with that, like being obsessive over the food that she was eating to stay a certain, body shape, etc. Which, has its own kind of pitfalls, as obviously. But then the drinking and drug taking did kind of ramp up. And at one point, Kristen had kind of thoughts of just driving her car off a bridge, which obviously, as you can imagine, she didn't do, but that obviously gave her a shake up and a scare and kind of, I guess, started the kind of earworm, not earworm, but the brain worm to kind of really start focusing on what she wanted out of life. So yeah, it's a really good conversation. I took a lot from it as well, which I'm hoping you guys will. So listen for the similarities. Obviously trigger warnings when listening to all of my episodes, but yeah, just take care. But I think that despite the trigger warnings, people will take a lot from this episode. So sit back and enjoy. See you at the end, guys. Cheers. Here's Kristen. Kristen, you are from Tennessee, and did you say your home city's Nashville? I mean, that you must be musically talented because that's obviously the big kind of music hub of the kind of Midwest, is it?
The Southeast.
Southeast, sorry, I don't know. I just
No,
got
it's
my
okay. It's okay. Yeah, well, I'm actually from East Tennessee. Like I grew up in pretty small town, um, Appalachia. So,
yeah, okay.
but yes, now I live in sort of middle Tennessee, and Nashville is my home base, like, where I'm based out of for work purposes. But yeah, I actually live out in the countryside. I built a
Mhm.
tiny house and I
Oh,
put it
wow.
in the middle of the forest. Thank you, sobriety. Never thought I'd want to do that, but here we are.
That sounds like absolute my type of heaven. Like you built your own place. I'm guessing it's like a little cabin from like Little House on the Prairie type thing. Is it a log cabin?
No, so it's
No.
actually a shipping container.
Oh, awesome. Very,
Yeah,
very.
my dad and I did all of it like
Yeah.
DIY. It took me almost 4 years. And just kind of did a little bit at a time and finally found some land to put it on. And I moved in the beginning of March of this year. So I haven't been here long, but it's awesome.
Wow. That sounds awesome. Still things in boxes, but yeah, awesome. Well, Kristen, welcome to After Hours. Yeah, it's so nice to kind of, finally meet you. I know we've been following each other on Instagram for a little while. But yeah, we just really kind of want to hear about, like your upbringing, where you grew up and when you had your first drink. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love to talk about these things. I grew up in a small town, like I said, East Tennessee. I had a really great family. I still have a really great family. I had a wonderful childhood. I'd had a lot of cousins, a lot of friends, a lot of activities. I was a
Hmm.
really good student. And I didn't really touch alcohol until after I graduated high school.
Okay.
And I started, partying. I started smoking weed and drinking on the weekends. And really, for the first few years, I was just sort of drinking alongside my peers.
Hmm.
Even into my early 20s, I don't remember feeling that I was doing anything much different than anybody else, and I
Hmm.
think it just seemed like the norm. And, to be honest, we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of stupid shit, but like there was never any, horrible consequence.
Hmm.
But when I was 18, 19, 20, I got into a relationship with a guy who was a little bit older, who ended up becoming a very abusive
Hmm.
person. And I know actually now looking back, I think that experience really changed the way that I used substances. So
Hmm.
after that experience, I was kind of drinking as a coping mechanism. I had all these very uncomfortable feelings and a lot of shame, a lot of what I now know is trauma, but then it was just a lot of confusion and anger and sadness. And I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't really feel like I could talk about it. And so, when I drank, there was always kind of this element of like, how numb can I make these feelings? Like how good can I feel? Because my norm was a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of shame about, some
Yeah.
things that I had gone through. And that seemed to progress over my 20s. And there were moments where things in my life were great and it wasn't a really big issue. And then, it was my default though. So then when something negative or hard or, disappointing,
Hmm.
heartbreaking happened, it was just my default because that's what it had become. And so I think as it does, it kind of just gets like progressively darker, because
Hmm.
you just keep stacking all of these traumas and all of these problems without really processing anything or giving yourself what it really needs. Um, and so by the time I reached my early 30s, some wheels were starting to come off and my mental health really plummeted.
Hmm.
And that was a dark time. And I remember I got sober at 34. So that last year was just sort of looking in the mirror and not recognizing myself
Yeah.
and losing all of my optimism, all of my, you know, hope for what my life was going to be. And I was just this very dulled version of myself. And my mind was starting to turn against me. And I was having
Yeah.
really dark thoughts, really hated myself and where I was in my life. And so yeah, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but
No, no, it's
I
it's good. I mean, how long did that relationship last for? The first one, that you were saying that kind of, I guess, kind of gave you the trauma to have to want this kind of escapism. How long was that?
that was about 3 years. Three
Okay, so
years.
quite a while to be in a relationship. Clearly, is probably wrong, but you need to get out of it. But it's that whole thing where people kind of almost stay trapped. It's a weird situation because obviously you found alcohol that's, I suppose, numbing that pain. So it's just like, you know what, this is my life. This is kind of what I deserve almost, I think.
Yeah, and I mean I talk about this a lot because I think it's so important for women specifically, because
Hmm.
so many women have been in a situation like that, and we've internalized it as, you know, our own failing
Yeah.
to not get out of that, right? Because unless you've been in it, you don't really understand the psychology of that kind of goes on. And so there's so many layers, but it's, you know, these kind of predators, you know,
Hmm.
their whole goal is to break you down to this level where you don't think you can, you know, survive without them, or you don't think you're worthy of something more. You don't think anybody else would ever want you. So, like, this is the best you can get.
Yeah. And I
And
guess
there's just,
sorry, but sometimes you almost, there's that psychology where you think, because they probably apologize for whatever they're doing, and then you think, okay, this is it. They're gonna change. Do you know what I mean? This is the last time they're gonna do it. So you kind of keep believing that, and you just kind of want that to happen. It's almost like you're trying to manifest it. I mean, I don't want to put kind of, thoughts in your head, but like I've heard that can be kind of situation as well. And was he a
yeah.
drinker and user of drugs as well? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was. And you know, I'm a really sensitive person. I'm a really empathetic person, and I'm a very spiritual person. And so all of those things combined, I just, you know, especially in the beginning, you really think that you're going to help this person, that
Yeah.
you're going to be enough light that you will snuff out their dark.
Hmm.
And, you know, I just continually kind of stayed in that mindset. But yeah, I think that's a big piece of it too. It talks about the kind of generational trauma of things like that, because he was certainly a product of that type of environment.
Yeah.
And the alcoholism ran in his family. He had a real dark entity attached to him. And you know, it's hard because when you're 18 years old, you really just don't understand any of that,
Yeah,
though,
you're
right?
you're brand
Like,
new. You're brand new. You're just starting out in life. And I mean, obviously in the US you can't even drink till you're 21, but instead you've
right.
got into this like, abusive relationship. How much older than you was he?
It was not too much. If it was like 3 or 4
Yeah,
years,
so
but
so
old
not
at
like a
that age,
huge gap.
it's
Yeah, but
yeah.
it's fine and but how did that affect your kind of career options? What did you kind of do through your 20s job wise and studying? I mean, you did say you went to school, you went to college, yeah.
Yeah, I studied I've always wanted to be a writer.
Cool.
And I've only really come back to that, you know, since getting sober, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I was studying journalism, but as fate would have it, I don't know what we want to call it. I was scouted by a modeling agent when I was in my early 20s. And so I started that career, and I still do that.
Hmm.
I work as an actor and a model, but I ended up moving and traveling and living in New York and Chicago and then LA for a couple years, and went to Asia and did all these different
Nice.
things. Um, so, but to answer your question, I mean, when I got out of that relationship, I had absolutely no idea
Yeah.
what I was going to do. I was so happy though to be sort of free. You know, I think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I went and I got a job working at a restaurant, at a bar, and I made a bunch of new friends because I'd been very isolated for a long time. And so I finally lived kind of like a normal young 20 somethings life, and we would go out drinking like
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
every night after work. And so it just became such a huge part of my social life during
yeah.
that time. I couldn't imagine like
Well, I
not
guess
doing those things.
I guess, when you got out of that relationship, he, I'm guessing, was very controlling. So you only did what he kind of said. And now you're free. You've got a job. You're making your own money. So yeah, of course you're going to go out and socialize and enjoy life, and that is a natural thing to do when we're in our 20s. It was the same for me. I mean, I pretty much lived for the weekend. I worked in bars and, you know, my whole social structure was working in and around the bar, and that's what we did. We went out when we had nights off. So yeah, completely. It's not kind of. I guess we don't. I know a few people who are in their 20s and they've seen the red flags, but I did not see them at the time. I was just too much enjoying myself, and I could handle it. Because hangovers weren't that bad, and
I didn't start work until kind of midday anyway. So, I didn't have to be up at the crack of dawn for an office job in those days. So, yeah. So how did that develop through your 20s then? I mean, obviously, sorry to go on, but the modeling and the acting, that world, from what I've heard, is a little bit kind of champagne and this and that and a bit druggy as well. Can it be? Or
It definitely can be. I think, man, I think I was very, very lucky that this happened to me a little bit later than it happens to a lot of people who end up
yeah.
doing this. I was 28 when I moved to New York. So I was old enough to kind of know, like, okay, that's not a road that I want to go down. And,
Sure.
I need to. And it's also like a very, very difficult thing to do. So once the opportunity was put in front of me, I was like, okay, I could really do this. Like, this could actually, get me to some of these places I'm desperate to go, like
Yeah.
living in big cities and doing all these things. And so I took it very, very seriously. And I had to train like an Olympic athlete, in
Hmm.
order to get to the point that I did in New York. And so I wasn't drinking. I was able to turn it off and kind of focus on that goal.
Okay.
Now, all that to say, I mean, I think kind of the tendency to overcompensate it still came in with other things like,
Yeah.
I would obsess over food, and it's obviously that industry is you know it's really harsh when it comes to body image and all those sort of things. And I certainly developed every single different eating disorder a person can
Oh,
have over the course of
geez.
that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me too, and how I was able to really keep the drinking at bay, and I was able to kind of get my work done and show up and stay focused. But the thing is that when something happened though, like
Hmm.
I went through a divorce actually. I was
Oh,
married
wow.
in my mid 20s, and I went through a divorce living in New York. Those kind of things, right? I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
immediately went to drinking. And
Yeah.
so before you know it, I'm like, I'm slinking into the bar at 3 o'clock, and it's real easy to hide away in New York and sort of be undetectable. And it's
Hmm.
just, it was very easy for me to slip into that because when things got hard, that's what I reached for to turn it
Because
off.
you've got a reason to. You're going through a
Yeah.
divorce, you're in a city where you can be anonymous, and, you're in your 20s or, early
Yeah.
30s, and you can do it. Yeah. There's no one to tell you not to because you don't have a problem. And, well, not yet, and that's the thing. We need excuses and we need reasons. And I was the best for finding anything that was going wrong or right in my life. And it was like, right, time to crack a bottle. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah, I
absolutely
relate to that.
love New York as well. I went visited New York in 2004. So when were you there?
I was there 2014,
Right. Okay.
15, and part of 2016.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And
Yeah, it's a
so
great city.
yeah, absolutely loved it. I mean, we just went there for a week, but it was one of those. I found it really magical, and I know it's probably a lot different post 9/11 to pre, but do you know what? It was just a magical city. So yeah, yeah, absolutely loved it. So yeah, so when did the drinking kind of escalate then? Was that the kind of point with the divorce, or were you just kind of switching it on for a little bit and then back off to focus on the acting or the modeling?
Yeah, it was always this unpredictable cycle with me
Mm,
because, you know, I would have really bad nights here and there where I would just get obliterated and act out of character, or, something that I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's not good.
yeah.
Um, but but it wasn't constant enough that it ever felt like, okay, now we're really out of control. It was like it wasn't until I started noticing my mind going to much darker places
Hmm.
than it had before. So at the end of 2019, I had been living on the West Coast for a couple of years. I was going to acting classes and trying to do that whole thing there. And I had started writing again, which was making me really happy. But it just things weren't progressing. I was in a
Hmm.
new relationship that at one point was really wonderful, and then it kind of just imploded and was falling apart. And so I was at this place where I was just like, I don't, I don't know, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Nothing seems to be working out right now. And
Hmm.
I started to really hate myself. I was so disappointed. I just felt like I just couldn't get anything right.
Yeah.
And I left LA and I came back home to Tennessee. And I remember, those last few months, I would get a bottle of wine on the way home. And it was so sad. It was just a different energy than I had ever had before. And I would drink alone. I would, kind of hide that I was
Yeah.
drinking. There was no social aspect really left to it. I mean, I would go out and get blasted, sure, and do all the things, but really it was just this sad, slow, like death. And I
Yeah.
recognized it. And I really hated myself. And I had a thought of driving my car off of a bridge, driving home.
Oh,
Like just a very direct, just matter
yeah.
of fact thought. Like I could just do that.
Yeah.
And that scared me to death because I
Yeah.
just was like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like where's the girl who
Has
had
everything
these
to live
wild
for.
dreams?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, who wanted everything in life. Like why are you like this is not normal. This is
Yeah.
not you. Um
And
and so
it's weird
yeah.
those like intrusive thoughts. And I know you potentially it was like it was a thought, so you weren't really considering it, but those thoughts still coming into your head is worrying, like I never was talking to someone last week. I never had any like real suicidal thoughts, but I did think about like what if I just walked out into the street and a truck came along, and do you know what I mean? Because I was
Yeah.
so depressed with everything that was going on. And it was like, and I knew the drinking was bad at that point. So it was just like, well, if I just stepped out here and accidentally something came along, then it'd be done. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I totally get that, but
Absolutely.
it's dark. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really more of like an apathy, It's like
Yeah.
I just don't care. Like why do I care? No one cares,
Yeah.
Nobody cares if I'm here or not. I'm not doing anything uh anybody's proud of. Like there was so much negative energy just
Yeah.
swirling around me and I saw it. I saw it head to toe, I had gained a little bit of weight. I was so dull and the light in my eyes was
Yeah.
just gone.
Yeah. But I bet, I
And
bet, I
yeah,
bet your family and friends all like absolutely adore you, want you to succeed. But the alcohol and whatever we're going through, the mental health issues with it, it tells us that we're useless and that we're no good to anyone, and what's the point in us being here and all of that. And that's the thing that's doing it. But we believe it. But as soon as you get kind of sober, and I'm sure it's the same with you, all these people are like, "Oh my God, we were so worried about you," and yeah, it's madness.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it
I
it
mean, my
fools
God,
us.
my all of my relationships with my family have improved so much, and so much
Yeah.
of that is because I was just living in a constant fear state and this constant anxiety state, and didn't even realize how much of that I was projecting on the people around
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm sure I was not pleasant to be around. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so stuck in my own little drama in my head of
Mm-hmm.
just this constant feed of like everything I've ever done wrong and everything that I will never do right. And um but I think it probably came across as really selfish behavior and impulsive behavior. And so, I take a lot of responsibility for, pushing people away too and making things about me.
Yeah.
Um, but I was really hurting a lot. And I didn't know how to tell people that. I
Was
think the
anyone
drinking.
was anyone recognizing it? Did anyone ever say to you, like, Kristen, maybe you're drinking a bit too much? Or because it sounds like you probably hid it quite well. I think if you were doing it on your own and there was no relationship there to kind of spot what was going on, did they not notice like that you were kind of withdrawing from gatherings or things like that? Was that noticed?
I think that my closest family, like my parents, my mom passed away a few years ago, but
Oh, sorry.
my dad, my sisters, they saw
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that I was just constantly making things harder than they needed to be. And I think, I would drink too much and I would, lash out. I would take an argument a step too far. I would be a
Hmm.
little too loud and I would suck up the air out of the room. Do you know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
I think they all saw that. And I think they were all kind of like, we don't really know. Like, she
Hmm.
seems fine. She's got this going on, that going on. There's nothing physically wrong with her. Like, a little bit of a bitch here and there, but like, whatever. I think it's hard, but after I got sober, I mean, they're all so happy that I am, and I think my
Yeah,
dad, he's a man of few words, but I think he said something like, "Yeah, you were a bad drunk," and like
yeah.
it's like
Well, we become
um
oversensitive. I was definitely oversensitive and not in a good way. It would be like the littlest thing would just set me off, and I'd either go into like just not talking or, a bit of a like I was never a ragey person, but I could definitely be quite, angry and but it was just the littlest, stupidest things, and
yeah.
it's just not me. It's not in my character. And
Yeah.
that's the difference when we get sober, we kind of realize like who we kind of really are, and we can handle a lot more.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think I was walking around with all of this pain
Mm,
and trauma just here, and I was trying to stuff it down, stuff it down, stuff it down. But there were times, a lot of times when I drank that it would just come out, right? Because when you're like, it's like a pressure cooker
yeah,
and you keep trying to keep all this stuff buried, like the lid's gonna start bubbling. It's like, and
yeah,
so I could get triggered, a guy at a bar like make a pass at me, and all of a sudden he's my ex-boyfriend who used to do horrible things to me, and I'm going to just castrate him for no reason. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there
yeah,
were a lot of those kind of instances, which
yeah.
for people on the outside looking in, it's like, oh, Kristen's crazy. Like, she's like, whatever. But it was
Unhinged,
deeper
yeah,
than that. It was
yeah,
deeper than that. Yeah.
yeah. And it's yeah, like, people might have thought I was a bit unhinged at times because there was two sides to me. There was the me who was probably miserable unless he had a drink, and then there was like I suppose there was a fun, happy drunk to a point, and then it was just gone. Do you know what I mean? And I would just be kind of belligerent,
Yeah.
not really listening. But like you, most of my drinking towards the end was done at home. Unfortunately, my ex girlfriend had to kind of deal with that, but it was just mostly kind of drinking in secret. Although she'd be drinking wine and I'd be drinking wine, but I'd be drinking vodka in the bathroom, hidden, and then I would just normally just pass out on an evening, and that was that.
Yeah.
That who wants to spend time with that? That's not fun. That's
Yeah.
not living life. And I was in my 30s, so it's crazy. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
would you say that you were? Like at what level would you say? Would you say you were like a gray area drinker or, and I hate the word alcoholic, but did you become dependent on it to a point or?
No, I've never used those words either.
Uh,
I think I abused alcohol, no
yeah,
doubt.
yeah, yeah.
I drank in excess and I used it as a crutch for almost everything.
Hmm.
I was never physically dependent. I
Hmm.
think it changed. It was, I went through phases where I went through a really bad breakup when I was living in New York, and I woke up at 8 o'clock and drank the rest of the vodka tonic that was on my dresser because I was so sad and I just couldn't, like,
Yeah, and you
so I
deserved it.
did,
Yeah,
I deserved that,
yeah,
that man made me do
yeah,
that,
yeah. It wasn't your fault. It's not what you
it
wanted
wasn't
to do,
my
but he
fault.
pushed you to that. So I'll
No,
have a I'll
he
have
he
a
shouldn't
vodka
have been
tonic.
lying, and what else are you supposed to do? Um, but yeah, I am a proud sober girl. Like, I use that term.
Yeah.
But I think, it's more that I've had an awakening around alcohol and its place in my life and what it's actually good for, if it's got any value. Like, I've really had an awakening around that and what I what I want for myself. And I just want so much more than that thing has ever been able to give me and could ever give me. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And I think it's so true because, I did do, I did NA, although drugs were never a major problem, but alcohol's a drug. So that kind of suited for me. And I did that religiously for the first year, even though, people think, oh, it's religious. I use that as a word. I'm not religious, but, the universe was my higher power. But I did it militantly for the first year because I needed that kind of structure in my life. But all the things I learned in that and other kind of recovery tools and all sorts of things, they're so transferable into just normal life,
Yeah.
Like even certain things like people say, oh, if you're thinking about having a drink, we play the tape forward, like fast forward to like, a day or 2 days. People can use that for any situation in life, and keeping your side of the street clean. Like, as I say, I started drinking when I was 14. So all through my life until I was 40 when I got sober, I'd used it like you as a crutch for socializing, for trauma things that had happened, traumatic things. So when I turned 40 and got sober, I started like learning how to live, if that makes sense, And it's not
Yeah.
like, yeah, I gave up drinking and that was a massive hindrance in my life. But all the things that I've learned, since getting sober has just been, anyone can learn these things because I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe aren't massive kind of, alcoholics or drinkers or have a problem with it, but they're still using it as a kind of crutch or just something that they need to do. You go into like let's say New York or the cities here on a Friday, Saturday night, people aren't drinking because they like the taste, are they? You know?
Yeah. Well, it's just a socially acceptable
Yeah.
form of self-sabotage, really. I mean, we say that it helps us loosen up and connect with
Yeah.
people, and it really is the opposite of that. To me, what I've come to understand is that alcohol was really keeping me arm's length around from everybody, right? And
Hmm.
everything, like every true feeling, every true connection, I was like pushing away when alcohol was this huge piece of it, because
Hmm.
it's really hard to get below the surface level if it's based on boozing or drugging or whatever. I mean, you can only go so far with a person or with an experience, or you know
Yeah.
whatever it is.
And it's like what you said, but when you go out, and I was social in my kind of 20s and early to mid 30s, and I would love going out on the town and and hanging out with my buddies and speaking to women and things like that. But looking at it now from this kind of sober side of the fence, it's such a dangerous place to be out on a Friday and Saturday night, because like essentially for girls, their kind of inhibitions are down. There's a lot of predators out there, let's be honest. And for guys as well, guys that are just trying to have a good time, they might say the wrong thing or look at the wrong guy the wrong way, and they're going to end up getting, jumped. And and I know this doesn't happen to everyone out there, but the police would have a lot kind of quieter time if there wasn't any alcohol out in the towns. It's
It's really crazy. Like you said, when you step on the outside of it and you're
mm,
looking at it, from the outside in, and you just see how much negativity it
yeah.
brings to society as a whole. Like, and the thing with women, I mean, I read Holly Whitaker's book Quit Like a Woman when
Hmm.
I decided to get sober. I was probably 2 weeks sober, and I ordered that book, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like, because she was making this argument that sobriety is radical feminism. It's like
Okay.
this kind of claiming of all of your space and all of your faculties and all of your awareness, and like, who suffers the most because of alcohol? I mean, by and large, women. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at it from all of the different angles of, public safety and domestic violence and all sorts of things. And I found that really fascinating. And it was something that I really grabbed onto. I was able to
Hmm.
really feel empowered by that. Like, oh, this is a really powerful choice that I'm making. And this is, yeah, I'm a badass. Like, I'm a feminist. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to silence me. You're not going to smooth me over. I'm going to show up completely present.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot harder to trick me or hurt me or all these other things, so that was the place I entered sobriety from. And I think
Okay.
that's made all the difference. I knew when I decided to quit that I had to do it in a way that felt positive. Like I just the narrative and the rhetoric from like traditional recovery, it just didn't speak to me.
Hmm.
And it felt very limiting, and it felt kind of like also, the creative artist in me too is like, well, you can't define my whole life and all of my experiences and why I am the way I am with like one word.
Yeah.
I'm layered and I'm complex, and I'll be damned if you're just going to box me up with a bow and be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, this is who you are. This is why you do this. And so I just went looking for other people. Like, there's got to be someone else that feels like this. And
Yeah.
can we do this in a way that's fun? Like, what? We're not sad. This is a good thing, right? And
Hmm.
so that's where it all started.
I love that. And what was the catalyst that kind of made you think, right, this is it? Was it that time on the bridge or a few? Was it a number of things that kind of thought, I need to
Well,
stop now, you know?
yeah, it was definitely that shortly after that time on the bridge. But there were just a few things. I wasn't drinking particularly heavily at that time. Like I
Hmm.
said, it was more like a little bit of wine by myself
Yeah.
most nights.
But enough to have a
But
negative impact on your life. And that's, let's be honest,
yeah,
that's the only thing you need,
it was a dumpster fire. My mental health was a complete dumpster fire. And
Hmm.
I was sending these really sad, like mean texts, to my ex-boyfriend at the time. And I remember waking up and seeing that one morning and just being like, I hate her. I hate you. I hate her. Like
Mm.
that's awful. And
Mm.
so I kind of ruminated with that for a couple weeks. And then I woke up on February 26th is my sober date. And I woke up that morning. I had had, a beer or two the night before. I wasn't hungover,
Hmm.
but I woke up and I heard this like voice. It wasn't like super booming, but it was clear and pretty loud. And it was just, you're done.
Hmm.
You're done. And I immediately knew that that's
And
what it
what
was. It was
was that? What
that
year was that? Sorry, February 26th,
2020,
2020. Yeah.
2020.
So literally, wow, that's interesting that date because that was not long after my 40th birthday, which is 7th of February. And that birthday, I'd been sober since the new year, and then I had a few drinks on that birthday, and then it just kind of started escalating again from there. Because I would go in these cycles, and it started escalating from that birthday. I think I only had a couple of beers just to kind of say, I'm sober at the moment, and I'm gonna have a few beers, but that was enough to just kind of tip the scales. Within a month, I was in rehab, and then I was kind of out, and then obviously lockdown, blah blah blah. Got
Yeah.
forward to August 19th, 2020, and that's when I got sober. But well done, you. So you're past the 5 year mark. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. I hit 5 years this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had a very, very clear recognition in that moment. It was like, you have two choices. The
Hmm.
two choices are you can continue the way you've been living, and you can keep drinking. You don't have to change anything.
Hmm.
Or, or you can give yourself a chance to like reach your highest potential. You can
Yeah.
maybe get everything you want. There is no third option, just so you know. Like that was this recognition I had. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, either more of the same, or maybe you have a shot at greatness, at the extraordinary, at something really beautiful in this life.
Yeah.
And I was like,
But it's
okay, well,
interesting.
obviously
Sorry
that.
to butt in again, but it's interesting. The first option you're saying there just stay the same. I don't think it would stay the same because the trouble with this disease, if
Yeah.
you want to call it, or disorder, it does get worse. So instead of it just plateauing, I'm pretty sure it would have got worse if it was already kind of having that negative impact. But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
carry on.
And there are things that have happened since then that
Hmm.
looking back, I'm like, whew, thank
Mm.
God. Thank God that I quit when I did. I was just shy of 2 years sober when my mom died.
Uh-huh.
And it was pretty sudden. I mean, she had been dealing with a lot of issues, and it was
Yeah.
a rough go for my sisters and I for several years. And that was really, really hard. But if I hadn't been sober, I think that moment could have crushed me. I think that moment could have been like the beginning of the end for me.
Yeah.
And so I just, I believe in divine timing. I believe in all of those things. And I do think it would have gotten worse. I do think that it just would have kept compounding on itself. And I
Yeah.
would, at the very least, I think I would have lived a life much, much smaller than I was meant to.
Hmm.
And I think that I would have left this place with such a dark, negative opinion of myself
Yeah.
and the world. Um, and now, I feel the opposite of that. I feel
Yeah.
that I am going to leave this place, hopefully feeling like I really gave everything I had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so you were 34 when you gave up, is that right?
Yeah.
When you quit, and so I was just mentally looking back, and when I was 34, I was probably in a similar boat to you. Like I was probably a little bit worse, but I'd had instances where, alcohol had kind of had this negative impact on my life. It wasn't as bad as it got, and I think, had I given up then, and I'm not saying that I regret when I gave up or anything like that, but had I given up then, yeah, it would have been a good thing, but like obviously I didn't, and it did kind of manifest itself, and it just continually got worse until I couldn't. It was jails, institutions, or death, as they say. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't really fancy many of them. So yeah, that's kind of it. But yeah, and sorry to hear about your mum. And was that a kind of was there kind of any thoughts that went through your head when that happened? So you were 2 years sober at that point, which is
Yeah. I
quite a
was,
good, strong standing, but like it is still that one thing in my head. It's like, the loss of a loved one. I mean, I'm nearly 5 years now, and I'm pretty sure that that's not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to use that as an excuse to drink. But back when I first got sober, like in the first 18 months or so, I was kind of thinking, oh my God, what if something traumatic happens? Am I going to be tempted,
I had those exact same thoughts. I
Hmm.
remember actually, I remember talking about that on a podcast, like the first year of my sobriety at some point, and saying, there's always, in the back of my mind, like when one of these really hard life things happen, am I going to be able to handle it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had definitely thought about that. But, it was in the moment when, we get the call. My mother had a stroke and she
Mm.
was in the hospital. And, we get there and the circumstances are grim and we
Mm.
know where this is kind of going, and it was a 4-day ordeal.
Yeah.
But while I'm there, I am so grateful to be 100% present, as painful as it was, as horrible as it was. Like, it's the worst feeling I've ever experienced in my life, certainly. But I was able to feel all of it. I was
Yeah.
able to even see the beauty in it. I
Yeah.
was able to really lean in and be there for her too.
Sure.
Like, this is my mother. She gave me her entire life. She
Yeah.
gave me every good thing about me, comes from her. And so I was able to just dig in and just be there with brutal, raw, just, the most exposed, vulnerable.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to change it. There was no moment that I thought I'd really rather be effed up. It was
Yeah.
like, no, 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 I can't miss this. This is life right
Yeah.
here,
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
also you don't want to disrespect your mother by, tarnishing her memory by going out and getting blitzed and then, either showing up at the hospital a little bit drunk or inebriated. And like you say, not remembering it. This is
Yeah.
this is the kind of most
Oh my
important
God.
thing, because these are the aspects of life. And yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily you did have those kind of 4 days, as brutal and as beautiful as they were. You had them, to be there for your mother and the rest of your family around you. So yeah, it's a gift, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sobriety. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to hear that because you just think there's so many things you can't do without that kind of off switch. but
Yeah.
you can do it, and you will surprise yourself, and you'll get through. So grateful that you
Yeah,
didn't tap out.
exactly. And so your Instagram handle is Creative Sobriety, is that correct? Am I saying
That's
it right?
right.
Yeah. So
Yes.
tell me about the whole creative side of that because I love it and I love the fact that for me like I trained as a photographer. I did film studies, but I didn't really kind of finish that off. But I've always been a creative soul. I'm trying to write again. I'm trying to write my memoirs, but even down to like doing things like the podcast and being on Instagram like I love being creative, and I found that
Yeah.
when I was drinking, that was all just stifled. I had no kind of any kind of want for it, or when I did do it, it was rubbish, and I would maybe think it was great, and then the next day I'd look at it and go, "Well, that photo's absolute crap." So yeah, so tell us about like how you came about that name and what creativity means to you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, creativity means everything to me. I've wanted to be a creative person since I was a little kid, you know?
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
always thought that if I could find a way, there's a hummingbird. That's my
Oh,
mom. Um,
beautiful.
so yeah, I've always wanted to be an artist, and it was painful to me when I wasn't expressing myself. All those times in my life,
Yeah.
the years in LA right before I got sober, when things were kind of falling apart, I was just so frustrated because I felt like I had all of this inside of me
Hmm.
and no place to put it. I wasn't finding the way to make it work to where I could really be this and I could really do this and express myself. And I romanticized the tortured artist thing for a really long time, right? I would
Hmm.
be drinking a bottle of wine, sitting by my window, smoking a joint, writing my manuscript. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it would, like you said, it was like a half truth. It was like never, I could never quite get there. And I certainly didn't have the follow through that you need to do something like write a book.
Yeah.
Um, so when I got sober, I knew that I wanted to prove to other people, but first I needed to prove to myself that I could be this wildly creative, free spirit, artist of a person without booze, without drugs.
Hmm.
And I needed to find other sober artists. I needed to find people who were out there doing the things that I dreamed of doing completely sober and like proof that they were enjoying it and that they could be successful. And, one thing didn't equal the other, right? Like,
Hmm.
I thought inebriation was inspiration for a long time.
Hmm.
And they're actually like very opposite. They don't go together. Um, so that's where, I wanted to do sobriety in a creative way too. I didn't want to follow any rules. I didn't want to follow anybody else's like blueprint of it. And
Yeah.
so creative sobriety was just born out of like, hey, I'm a creative person. I'm sober and I'm trying to do all this stuff in a creative, unique way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Anybody else out there? And turns out they are. Turns
There's
out
loads.
people really
Yeah.
people are really hungry for that. So
Yeah.
it's been so cool to just meet people from all over the world. Like, look, here we
Well, exactly. You're in Tennessee. I'm in the Isle of Man from Scotland. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
bizarre. But like you, Kristen, I was exactly the same. Those like what do we call them? Fallen idols or tortured souls like Jim Morrison. I thought I was like the kind of reincarnation of him or John Lennon when I was in high school. And then like, as I got older, it was like writers like Hunter S. Thompson who, had to be completely inebriated and get into these weird and wild adventures. And he lived it. He did, like a lot of the other ones, I guess their creativity kind of did tail off at the end when they got really kind of addicted to that. Hunter S. Thompson, that was his fuel, that was his tool to kind of come up with these stories, and he lived it right to the end. But I
Yeah.
definitely haven't been as kind of um like I'm not like inspired or idolize him anymore. Like I think his writing's still great, but I think inside he was a tortured soul. And people like Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, I sometimes wonder like I read Jim Morrison's biography a while back, and it's a really in-depth one. I can't remember the name of the author, but it was all these different aspects of his story, and it was just like how tortured he actually really was, you know. Like I think we all knew
Hmm.
that, but actually reading this book, I was like, man, I got to the end of the book and I almost just wanted to kind of reach into the book and grab him and go, man, because he was only 27. And he's like, go, man, like you just need to get in a program or something. And the amount of poetry and other art and creativity that would have come out of him had he not died at that age. And it was because of drugs and alcohol, you know, and it's just like,
Yeah.
what a waste, you know? And
So many.
yeah,
So many. It's the 27
or the
Club, right? It's
27
like,
Club, you know, like Amy Winehouse. I mean, I
hmm,
remember that vividly. And then, like recently, I've started realizing exactly what it was. She'd given up, and because she'd given up for quite a while, she went back onto it, relapse, and it was alcohol because she started drinking again. How much she used to drink, and her body just wasn't ready for it, and she got alcohol poisoning. So simple and so tragic, you know, and
yeah.
it's just madness. But I love the creativity side in your Instagram, and you know you've got so many people that are kind of getting involved in that as well, and I just love that. And like you, I love taking photographs again and writing again, and just, do you know what I mean? It's life is full of creativity, and I think alcohol was just
Yeah.
really stifling that for me. So yeah, do you think that alcohol still has a place in our society?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot actually. Are you anti-alcohol?
Yeah.
Because I write a lot about just the policies that we have around alcohol and the way it's, so freely marketed, and there's all kinds of stuff I could go into, but
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I think people have the right to choose what they want to do with their life. I'm
Yep,
very
yep.
much not looking. I don't want to take anyone's. I don't want to take it off the table for anyone by a matter of like law, right? I'm not a neo-prohibitionist. Um, but I think we really, really need to reevaluate alcohol's
Mm-hmm.
place in our society. I think we need to take a real hard look at, why it's put on a pedestal the way that it is, and how 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 embedded it is even into our government, and our politicians are all very much getting their pockets lined from the alcohol industry, at least here in the States. That's very much true. And so I'm very interested in seeing that system kind of rearranged,
Yeah,
and for people to be told like the truth about alcohol. I
yeah,
think um the alcohol industry really gets off without any onus. When the truth is, like, they flash an ad across the TV of this very highly addictive, carcinogenic substance, and they
mm-hmm.
only have to put drink responsibly at the end. And then, if we can't do that, then that's on us, right? We're just
Yeah,
alcoholics, and that's our problem.
yeah. It's your
I
problem.
just it's messed up, man.
And I totally agree. I mean, I'm not, obviously we're not going to go back to prohibition times or
Yeah.
whatever, but people need to be educated and need to make up their own mind through an educated process because, like, yesterday it came up on my Google News and it was on the Guardian newspaper over here, where there's a team of doctors that want to go to our prime minister and start saying, listen, we need to start putting labels on the bottles because seven types of cancers, blah, 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 all the rest of it, you know, this needs to be out in the forefront. And then people can make up their own mind. But like cigarettes, let's tell people what this is actually doing to them, and then they can do it themselves. But just having drink responsibly is it's ridiculous because I can't remember the word, but it's like if you're putting something that says to something responsibly when the thing that you're doing is depleting your responsibility. Do you know what I mean? By the time you've had two beers, responsibility's gone out the window. So it's a kind of oxymoron in a way.
Yeah.
And then you've got the glamorization of it because, you know, it's like people on a beach in a bikini and the swimmer shorts, you know, with the chiseled bodies and all of that, and they're drinking
Always.
their pink gin and their Coors Light and all of that stuff. They don't see the opposite end of that scale, which is in the hospital at the end, where the person is being told by the doctors, listen, you cannot drink anymore because you're gonna die. And all they're thinking about is how they can get a bottle of wine. You know, it's
Yeah.
where is the
Yeah,
middle
or
ground in there?
even just like, even just the next morning when she wakes up and she slept with this guy that she really didn't even want to, and she doesn't really remember it. And now she looks in the mirror and she's got so much shame and regret, but like, you got to put your makeup on. She's got to go to work and she's got a splitting headache and so much anxiety. And then she just
Yeah.
doesn't sleep really well that night. And so the next day she skips her workout and she doesn't do the things that make her feel good. And this goes on for 10, 15, 20 years. And she's a shell of the person she was before. But she doesn't quit because there's no word for that, right? Because we
Hmm.
don't talk about that. It's like, no, just keep going, honey. Like, get on with the show. You're a successful grown adult woman. Like, you got to drink nice wine. And
Yeah.
it's just madness to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole thing, I mean, it is getting better in the 5 years since I've quit, but that whole thing where people say to you, "Are you having a drink?" And you go, "Oh no, I don't drink. I'm sober." Like you said, I love that word.
Yeah.
I'm sober because it opens the conversation. People aren't as bad now, but they would have said to you, like,
What
why?
happened?
Why? Like, why? What? Why have you given up drinking? It's not like you give up cigarettes and people go, "Good for you," and that's those things will kill you. But like, you give up
Yeah.
alcohol, and people are like, "What is wrong with you? Why have you?" No, it's like, no, no, not what's wrong with me. What's wrong with you? Why are you still drinking? This is like it's like a
Yeah.
draconian pastime that's meant to, like what I was going to say earlier. When you go out in a town, if you go to a restaurant or a bar and there's people getting drinking, and I normally start leaving after they've had about 4 or 5 drinks because nobody's interested in what you have to say. They start slurring their words. They then start kind of can't really walk straight. They start saying things they shouldn't say. And it's like, how is this fun? And you're paying astronomical prices for the privilege of basically looking like a bit of an imbecile. It's a
It's
weird thing.
it's wild. It's
Yeah.
wild. And it's also like not the alcohol of the olden days. Like, I don't think people talk about that enough either. Like, the wine industry is so hell bent on like we are here for the art of winemaking, and this is, these are artisans and these are people of the land who make this art. And like, I do think that winemaking is a craft and an art form, but I
Mhm.
think it's been bastardized. I mean,
Yeah.
now they're putting all these chemicals and additives, and it's just mass production crap, for the most part. But I think it's like, we've taken this thing so far. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's something else now. And I can't, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that is. But I think, like, I don't know, I could go like deep conspiratorial on you, but I really think, like, who benefits, right? Who benefits when everybody's just sort of like a little drunk? I mean,
Yeah.
we're all just like so quick to reach for like the turn off. Oh God, I can't handle this. Like the news.
Yeah.
It's like, if everybody was just like a little bit more clear and like a little bit more present,
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot harder to get some of this really, really awful stuff by us. And like, we probably wouldn't take as much shit.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's really
I, I,
weird.
I know you didn't say it in so many words, but I like what you're saying, and I think you're saying that basically the governments are keeping us dumbed down. Do you know what I mean? They're keeping us from revolting and saying, "Hang on, why are you guys making an absolute fortune and you're creating this gap between the elite and us?" And we can't really argue with you because we'll just have a drink and we'll be okay. I don't want to get
Yeah.
into politics, but do you know what I mean? I feel like that as well, and it
Yeah.
is almost like let's just keep the hoi polloi, the masses, like happy drunk, and they won't ever question about what's going on upstairs, in the kind of elites of what's going on in the world. Because let's be honest, the world's a bit fucked, excuse my Scottishness, but it's a little
Yeah.
bit
It's
messed
so
up.
scary. It's
Yeah.
so beyond like I can't even comprehend. It's like, I can't imagine not being sober right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
And there are people who are like, I can't imagine being sober right now. And it's like, but that's the
Yeah.
thing, like, you can't change anything if you're not willing to like sit and look at it and at least
Yeah.
figure out what's actually going on. But yeah, I think it's like this, maybe, and this is, again, I'm not trying to start any, wars on the internet, but it's like oppression sold as liberation is like something,
Yeah.
something like that, because it is very much sold as this, salve to like all your pain and all your stress. Had a good day, drink. Had a bad day, drink. Had
Yeah.
an okay day, drink. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
huh.
And
Yeah.
and not only does it make us a bit numb, dumbed down, stupid in a way, and not able to get ourselves home a lot of the time, although, I did have a homing device that seemed to get me home. But like in 2023, 1.81 million people died from alcohol, and like all the drugs put together. So like, the governments are all like drugs bad and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. These are killing you. The drugs, just say no and all that. But like, I think it was like 500,000, all the drugs, from cannabis up to like methamphetamine and,
Yeah.
all of that. There was only 500,000, which is still a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like heroin's still a killer, meth's still a killer. But then you've got the legal drugs, which 1.81 million was alcohol. And then I think it goes up to 7 something million, which is tobacco. But we all know tobacco's bad for you. Let's get people knowing that alcohol's bad for you. And I feel like I've taken the blue pill or whatever it is, the red pill in the Matrix, and a lot of people, they don't want to be woken up yet. But, the more we keep
Yeah.
banging the drum, I think they're going to start waking up little by little and going, hang on, this is like the kids, the younger people, they're definitely a bit more savvy on it. I don't think they're drinking to the same extent that, I kind of was when I was their age. They're definitely a lot more. Of course, they are still going out. I think a lot more of them are taking weird kind of drugs. They're all taking
Yeah. Well, I
psychedelics and
think
things like that.
they're into like natural drugs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's half of Gen Z doesn't drink at all.
Hmm.
And the majority of them say they are sober curious or looking to drink less
Yeah.
based on
Yeah.
some research I've done. So
Wow.
it's pretty impressive, I mean, yeah, they're, cannabis is legal now pretty much throughout
Hmm.
the US, so that's a huge piece of it. But they're also very aware of what they're putting in their bodies.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more information
Yeah.
readily available to the younger generation than even I'm millennial, so we had
Yeah.
like half our life no internet and then the other half internet. It's like we have both.
Yeah.
But Gen Z's grown up with just information available at the tip of their fingers all the time. So
Yeah.
like they know that stuff is bad. They know all of these things. So I think it's going to be interesting to see as that generation comes up what kind of naturally happens with alcohol.
Hmm.
And then, here in the States, we're about to release some new dietary guidelines. Alcohol is on the table,
Mm.
and they haven't changed in 40 plus years.
Wow.
Um, and there's a chance that they may change this year. So I am very fascinated by all of that, and I write on Substack. Are you familiar with
I
Substack?
know Substack. Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Okay,
have one myself, but I think I'm
you
gonna
should
maybe
start
I'm gonna set
one.
one up. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You definitely should. Like
Cool.
we need more male voices in the
Okay.
sobriety space.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think especially with like long form content, I think that would be so cool. But yeah, I've been following that and it's wild to me. I'm really, really, really hoping that we see some new language, but who knows?
Well, I'm gonna have to find a little clip because I'll probably, completely bastardize this, but Professor David Nutt, who used to work for the government over here, he was saying that, like, we all know that had alcohol been discovered today, it would be made illegal and all that because they wouldn't be able to get it past all these different, like what he was saying was like for it's- like food and standards practice, right? If you were going to put, say, uh alcohol in a cake, there's just the amount that is allowed to be in a cake that a person would be able to eat over a year is less than a glass of wine because of the carcinogenic properties in it. So if you were to compare that to any other substances that the health and safety for food standards has to be allowed to put in, somehow alcohol
Mm,
is just kind of pushed to the side. But that's the amount, like less than a glass a year. I mean, I've probably got that completely wrong, but whatever it was baffling to me. I was like, oh my God. And then we go and drink a bottle of wine or two, on a night. And it's
yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
bonkers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and the fact that it's just great glamorized and sold to you from so many different
Yeah.
directions. I mean, it's in pop culture, film and TV. Um and yeah, I just think it's all really interesting and I think that
Yeah.
that is changing. I really do. I really do think, and I'm fully aware that I live in, a bit of an echo chamber, but I really do think people are changing, they're changing what they believe about consumption. I think
Hmm.
people are really, the pendulum is swinging from this massive overconsumption of everything to like a mindful consumption mentality, and also just like being really hungry for something more, right? I think
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
all,
yeah,
everybody is just so tired and so sick of like smoke and mirrors, and the
yeah,
pandemic really did a number on everyone, and we don't trust what we're being sold, and it's
yeah.
like alcohol is naturally going to fall on the wayside when people start removing things that aren't offering them that
Hmm.
kind of honesty and clarity and like simplicity in their life. I don't know. I think that's the direction we're moving.
Yeah. And I think, we're all connected now. If you even go back like 10, 15 years ago, yeah, we could email and all that, but now everybody's just connected all the time. You're in Tennessee. I had a guest on Sunday that was in Australia. It's just, and we're all, on the sobriety side of Instagram, we're all just sharing the same kind of rhetoric, and it's like this is getting out. And I think this is what we're saying, like with the young people, so like Gen Alpha, like I'm a stepfather to three kids, and I was speaking to a friend who's from Brussels in Belgium, and some of the slang terms that my kids were talking about is the same as what they're talking about in Brussels. Do you know what I mean? So I know what you're saying. We're all sick of all these governments and whatnot, doing us wrong and doing us dirty. But like everybody's kind of connecting online, and we're all kind of getting the
Yeah.
same rhetoric, and we're all kind of hopefully going to be fighting the same cause. And I think that, alcohol's not long for this world. It's always still going to be about, of course it is, because people are still going to want to smoke. They do that, that's fine. But I
Yeah.
think, the alcohol companies are going to really start to suffer in the next maybe 10 to 15 years. What would you say to someone who was just kind of starting out, maybe a day into their journey or just about to, sober curious, they're thinking about starting?
Yeah, I would say follow that curiosity, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you're hungry for a new experience because you've maybe been doing the same thing for a really long time and the results maybe you haven't yielded the results you want. So commit yourself to just being curious, like learn a new thing, take some time by yourself, stop distracting yourself, stop hanging out with people just to be hanging out with people, start being really selective with your energy,
Hmm.
read a book, take a bath, sit still because maybe you haven't done that in a really long time. um and just know that the world isn't going to pass you by if you take 3 months and just take care of yourself,
Yeah.
take a break, check out, man. Because on the other side of that is so much more energy, so much more creativity, vitality, and positivity. You are
Yeah.
going to genuinely like yourself more, believe more in what's possible for yourself. Like just do it, right?
Hmm.
3 months. 3 months. And if you can't do that, right? If that is very, very difficult, then that's something to look at too, right? And it's all just information. Like
Yeah.
just stay curious, whether it's easy or it's hard, or you slip up or you don't, or it goes great or it goes bad. Stay curious and get curious about why you do the things you do. Like, don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the 3 months to me is definitely key. I don't think dry January or sober October is long enough. But even when I see people on Facebook or whatever, and they're going like, oh, only 10 more days to go, and it's like they're constantly posting
Oh,
about it, and it's like, dude, like this shouldn't be an issue to give up alcohol for 30 days. And if you're really like desperate to get to the 1st of February so that you can have a drink, then you need to have a look at yourself and go,
yeah.
I think I might have a problem here, because anyone should be able to give it up for 30 days, you know? Like
Yeah.
my fiance, she doesn't really drink at all, and it was never an issue for her. She like I think she just did 6 months, and we didn't even really discuss it. It just kind of happened because she's not a big drinker, and that was easy. So that's the type of person that can take or leave alcohol. The others that are kind of like can't even give up for a week, they only drink at weekends, so that's fine. Yeah, but if you were to give up for 2 weekends, could you do that? I don't know if they could. And I think
Yeah.
like our generation, going back to what we're saying, our generation, we seem to be like, well, I say our generation, you're a bit younger than me, but my generation, like, we want to be healthy. We're out going to the gym a lot more than we did when we were younger, because obviously, we want to live long, healthy lives. So we're doing this. We're careful what we're putting in our bodies, like food wise, and like, people drinking oat milk or like whatever
Going
type of
vegan.
yeah, going
Yeah.
vegan, but then they're still pouring booze down their neck, and it's like
Yeah.
you might as well just pour gasoline all over what you've just done health wise, because it's not a healthy option. Let's be honest. But
It's so true.
the kind of
I hate seeing like wellness influencers or fitness influencers being like, look, do this, and then you can have two extra drinks on the weekend, or like, here's a skinny margarita. It's like, what are we
yeah,
doing, man? Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not health. Like, alcohol and wellness do not mix.
they
And I
don't mix at
cannot
all.
say that loudly enough. Yeah.
No, no, I totally hear you. So Kristen, would you say that you regret getting sober?
um, Getting sober is the absolute best decision I've ever made.
Yeah, I don't think there's
Yeah.
anyone out
10
there
out
that
of 10, 10 out of 10 recommend it.
good. There's no one out there that's saying, "Oh man, I wish I could have a hangover again, just one more time, just a hangover again," or
Yeah.
went home with the wrong person, or woke up under a park bench just one last time, because no, they
Just
don't.
one
No,
more time,
just one
man.
more time. That's it. Just one
Yeah.
last time. Yeah.
Yeah, just waking up and going through those text messages, no
Oh,
recollection of sending that FU to that one guy that I met like 2 years ago. I wish I could just do that
man.
every day. It's so fun. So
The
good.
worst thing with that is now that on WhatsApp or Messenger, and you delete a message, it still comes up and says you've deleted so and so's deleted this message. Like, why? Because I used to go to sleep after a night and whatever, sending messages to people, and I'd have deleted the messages. But I'm like, what the hell did I write? So not only did I have the fear of I've sent this, but I don't even know what I've sent, and did they see it? Did they not before it? Do you know what I mean? It's just yeah, it's oh, I don't miss that at all, one bit.
That feeling, so
Yeah.
much cringe.
Yeah. So what do you have a book or a film? I know you mentioned a book earlier, with to do with recovery that you want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, so when I first got sober, I was like I couldn't get my hands on enough literature. I read Holly Whitaker, Quit Like a Woman,
Hmm.
Annie Grace, This Naked Mind.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of memoir. Mary Carr wrote a memoir called Lit. It's
Oh,
absolutely
okay.
beautiful. I love Annie Lamott. She's a sober writer that I really admire. And I actually got to meet her recently, which was like,
Nice.
wow, oh my God, so amazing. But her book, Bird by Bird.
Uh-huh.
So if you're a creative person and, sober, she kind of combines those two things in a really beautiful way. And yeah, just I listened to a ton of podcasts like this,
Yeah.
honestly, when I got sober. I was just like, I just need to hear everybody. I want to hear everybody's story. I need to hear
Yeah.
as many
Yeah.
people tell me how they did it and what it's like, because it
Yeah.
just really
Well, that was it.
reinforced what I was doing.
When I used to go to NA and I'd be sat in the rooms and I needed it, like I'd go to that like 2 or 3 times a week, and I'd be like buzzing getting there. And then I'd be hearing all the different stories. And sometimes you'd hear the same stories, but they were told a little bit different. And then it was like, yes. So I was like, I need people to hear these stories. But obviously that's anonymous, so you can't share those stories. But like
Yeah.
then I found podcasts and I was like, oh my God, this is like going into the room. So, I just thought I need to kind of do this as well, and share the stories. So we can find you on Creative Sobriety, at Creative
Yeah.
Sobriety. And what's the name of your podcast?
It's also called Creative Sobriety.
Nice.
So, Instagram, I'm on TikTok, although I'm not really on TikTok, but I'm
I,
mostly
I'm
just
on
there
it,
for
but
cat videos and like
I
Taylor
don't
Swift
really like
videos. But
it. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a bit toxic, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, Substack, please
Substack.
come to Substack, especially if you like to read like more long form content. You know, I write
Hmm.
essays and I write also about the alcohol industry and the government and kind of all the different things that are happening there.
Cool.
Um, and yeah, my website is creativesobriety.co. So all of it's there if you want to check it out.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the kind of description of the podcast as well.
Cool.
And yeah, have you got anything else you want to kind of say to the listeners?
Just thank you so much, first of all, for having me, Jimmy. And
You're welcome.
yeah, anyone listening, like, please know that you're not alone and you're not the only person that's ever felt whatever you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
And I love getting messages on Instagram. So send me a message anytime. I'd love to meet you.
Cool. Awesome, Kristen. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. And yeah, thanks again.
Same, Jimmy. Thanks for everything you're doing. And
I
hopefully I'll
appreciate
talk
it.
to you soon.
Absolutely. Cheers, Kristen. Take it
All
easy.
right. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, another amazing conversation, another amazing guest. Thank you so much, Kristen. Like, yeah, she felt like she was in a pressure cooker sometimes, and getting triggered by guys in bars. Just like that kind of almost, I wouldn't call it rage, but just that frustration, I guess, that comes with alcohol. But it was so nice to kind of hear that Kristen's kind of road to recovery was by looking for other people, in a similar boat, predominantly strong women and feminists who were getting sober and showing their strength in the face of, alcoholism or, problem drinking. And then to just hear that loud voice saying, you are done. Kristen's now celebrated 5 years in February. But it could have been, like I was saying to her, the death of her mother could have been a trigger. But fortunately it wasn't. But how grateful she was to have been there and present and have all the feelings, including the beauty of it. Just such a thing, such a powerful thing to have been present for. And thankfully she didn't, kind of pick up on that as well. I love a bit of conspiracy on the pod. Not saying that everyone, is out there to get us, but it's easier for the government to keep us, in inverted commas, happy and drunk and not fighting back, and saying what the hell is going on. Some people might think the world's fucked, and then we might as well drown our sorrows and be numb to it. But it stops us questioning what's going on around us, and what the government are doing, and not being able to make a real difference in the world. Like us, if we're sober, we're going to start questioning things, and we're going to start kind of saying, I'm not happy with the way that this is going. But I don't want to go into it too much, but I think that the fact that they're making a shit ton of money off of alcohol, and it just keeps everyone in this numb kind of cryostasis state. It's something needs to change. Like, smoking's bad, of course it is, but it doesn't change your makeup. It doesn't change who you are as a person. It doesn't make you inebriated so that you're no longer kind of in control of your own thoughts and faculties. So something needs to change in that respect, I think. Going back to what Professor David Nutt said, he said the human body can only safely consume one large glass of wine a year. So what he's basically saying is, if it had been invented today rather than tens of thousands of years ago, it would fail modern food safety standards because of the harm it does to the human body. He can accept that 40,000 years of alcohol use is precedence, but if we invented it today, we wouldn't have that same precedence, he said. So what would we do? Well, what we would do is you would put your alcohol through food safety testing, and it would fail. It would fail because the maximum recommended amount of alcohol any individual should consume in a year based on the toxicology is a large glass of wine per year. That's why they had to exempt it, because you couldn't put it through normal testing. So that tells you how relatively harmful alcohol is. So, they're, to go from conspiracy to this, they're lying to you. They exempt it from the food standards safety test because it would fail, like massively fail. So I'll put that link in as well because it's a really interesting article in the I think it's the Telegraph or the Guardian or something like that. But like just waking up, people, it's not good for you at all. 1 glass of wine per year, not a glass of wine a day. That's what the old mantra used to be, like an apple a day and a glass of wine a day. Fuck that. It's not. It's a glass of wine a year. 250 ml a year is what is safe for you. Right. Just going to climb back down off my high horse. Thanks again to Kristen, an amazing guest to have on the podcast. Put all of her details in the show notes, and the details and books that she told us about. So yeah, thanks again, guys. I'll see you next Sunday. Put a comment in, hit the 5-star review button, and I'll see you next week. I'm off to Tynwald Day. Tynwald Day in the Isle of Man is it's our national day, and it's a celebration. It's the start of the opening of the House of Keys, which is the parliament over here, which is the longest running parliament known to man. It was set up by the Vikings way back when. I'm not even going to tell you the date, but it was like, over 1,000 years ago, I believe. And so they have a massive big kind of festival on the green in the Fairfield in St. John's. So Jen and the kids are up there already. They're setting up, and there's going to be dancing and singing, and there's a big market as well, which I used to do the last couple of years. I haven't set one up this year. I'm not doing photography market this year, but it is a great market. And it's a great day. The weather's sunny, a bit windy, but sunny. And there will be booze there. There will be, a big tent at the end, which, I'm not super excited about. But I've been told there's bagpipers at the end. So I'm hoping I can manage to stay until about 10 o'clock. But we shall see. But thanks again, guys, for listening right to the end. And if you have, pop a comment in and say how much you enjoyed it, or to the latter, to the negative if you didn't, and tell me why. But yeah, thanks, guys. Stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Cheers. Bye bye.